So, magic from technology. What could that possibly mean? Well, it started with a man named Arthur C Clarke, who was a British scientist and science fiction author. Now, Arthur C Clarke is known as one of the three pillars of the science fiction community, along with Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein. So, he was a well-known author. You might know him as the author of 2001: A Space Odyssey, also known as Stanley Kubrick's chilling science fiction space drama. But what really made Arthur C Clarke great was the fact that he did what every good science fiction author should. He predicted the future. In fact, in his career as a scientist, while serving as the head of the British Astrophysics Planetary Council, he published a study detailing how he thought that geosynchronous satellites that orbit around the Earth in a fixed spot, they don't move, could be used as a communication system. Nowadays, that plays a key role in how we communicate with people around the globe. So he always had this way of coming up with things that were ahead of their time. His writings had things that 50 years ago seem like a good idea today. And then he published his first law, that when a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, he's probably wrong. It's witty. It's a fun way of looking at our world. The second law then goes on to state that the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. Again, a witty way of looking at our world and a telling reminder. But I think the most important is his third law, which states that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, which is deep when you think about it, but what does it really mean? How does it really apply to our world today? Well, let's take a piece of technology, something ubiquitous, say a cell phone, like this one. Now, this is a simple cell phone. It's not a smartphone by any means of the imagination, but it can send and receive calls. Now, let's take this cell phone and take it back to, say, the 1800s. Oh, show it to some people there. Like, well, I don't know. How about these folks? Now, I don't know about you, but I probably couldn't sit down and explain to them the concepts of electricity and radio waves and magnetism and the things I'd need to describe to them why it's not, in fact, magic, why it's not sorcery, why I'm not a wizard. They might not understand it. They'd probably accuse me of doing things like Harry Potter. So then, my technology then, something that I take for granted, is sufficiently advanced to be considered by them to be magic. But what does it mean for those of us who aren't time travelers? Well, take, for example, the iPod. It's something that's simple to use. You can sit down and flip through it and find your music and then listen to it. But the iPod isn't quite the only way of dealing with music. There's also this baby. Now, this is what sound engineers use to change how music works. And the people who use it know exactly what it's doing to their music when. They know exactly what each button does, and they know exactly how it works. Sort of like Microsoft DOS. If you were running a computer with MS-DOS, then you knew exactly what your computer was doing at every minute because you were telling it to do that. But that's nothing at all like modern computers. Today, with, say, I don't know, the iPad, you press a button and something happens. You don't always see all the little gears turning behind the screens. It's, in a sense, magic. And we like it that way. Things work well, things work easier for us. And we see that computers across the board. This is a screenshot from the One Laptop Per Child project, a project to bring cheap, inexpensive laptops to children around the world. You don't even have to be able to read to use it. It uses symbols. It's pretty cool. It's its own form of magic. But there's also the unfortunate fact that every now and again, we all want to do this. It happens especially a lot at my house. So technology doesn't always work like we want it to. Sometimes it breaks down. It's not quite as magical as the world of Harry Potter. And then this happens. But right here, we see that it tells us exactly what's going on inside our computer. It takes away that magical veil that covers the world of the computer. It tells us exactly what went wrong. And it tells us that there's nothing we can do to fix it. Something like this is much better. It hides away all that technical, detailed stuff, all that science, and makes it a lot more like magic. So that we don't have to worry, we don't have to fret. Which is why, then, it's important that when we feel like we want to do something like this, if we remember to sit back and wait a little bit, give it some time to become sufficiently advanced, because then, eventually, and if we wait, it'll work like magic. Thank you.